Yo, the country that controls over 35% of the world's offshore money for private and institutional funds is now making a move into Bitcoin. Another enormous country in the European Union is seemingly FOMOing into Bitcoin strategic reserve trend of 2024. I mean, we've seen this phenomenon worldwide. We've seen it happen in South America, in Asia, in Europe, in the United States. It's happening everywhere. This is what Max Kaiser coined the global hash war. We've seen the major superpowers that include China, Russia, and America talk about Bitcoin. But now we're seeing the home of private offshore banking also talking about adopting Bitcoin. I mean, this specific country is known for being extremely fiscally conservative. This isn't a country, this is the country where the inflation rate has actually been somewhat stable for decades and decades and decades. So who is this giant offshore banking giant that we're talking about? Well, to reveal that, we're going to play you a viral clip from former President Barack Obama. Let's check out the clip.
Because if, in fact, you can't crack that at all, government can't get in, then everybody's walking around with a Swiss bank account.
So what am I talking about? I'm talking about Switzerland. Now, what is the big deal about this, guys, is, again, I said this in the very beginning, Switzerland is known for its fiscal conservatism. This is a country where, they've decided to stay neutral in the world wars. This is a country where people set up their bank accounts. They really value privacy. So the fact that they're even looking at Bitcoin this way is a huge, huge deal. I would say this is an even bigger deal than when the news came out that Goldman Sachs was quietly acquiring Bitcoin. Now, we don't know if it's Goldman Sachs, the bank, or if it's Goldman Sachs on behalf of their clients, but the point remains the same. Goldman Sachs is a very conservative bank. They don't do anything, too new, like Bitcoin adoption or looking into Bitcoin like an alternative asset. And Switzerland, again, an extremely fiscally conservative country. This is a huge deal. This is a massive deal. This is the dominoes falling into place. So this is the headline article for the audio listeners. It's from You Today. And it goes on to say the headline is New Initiative Aims to Add Bitcoin to Balance Sheet of Swiss National Bank. It goes on to say Give Zangane, VP of Energy and Mining at stablecoin giant Tether, has announced a new initiative to amend Switzerland's constitution in order to add Bitcoin to the balance sheet of the Swiss National Bank. Earlier today, it was published in the Federal Gazette, which kickstarts the signature collection phase. The initiative will have to secure a total of 100,000 manuscript signatures from Swiss citizens until June 30th. If successful, it will be reviewed by the Swiss Federal Assembly, the country's federal bicameral parliament. The reserves of the SNB are diversified across various fiat currencies and vast gold reserves. It boasts roughly 1,040 tons of the yellow material. However, Bitcoin advocates also want to include Bitcoin in Article 99 of the country's federal constitution, which states that the part of the country's reserves should be held in gold. This would require adding 2 of 3 words depending on the language. This is not the first time that such an initiative has been launched. Back in October 2021, 2B4CH, a local crypto-focused think tank, launched a similar initiative. Back then, it failed as expected. However, now that the US is seriously considering establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve, other countries might follow suit. As reported by You Today, Christian Lindner, the former German financial minister, has called for adding Bitcoin to the national reserves of Germany, as well as the reserves of the European Central Bank. Switzerland, of course, is known as one of the most crypto-friendly countries. Zug, one of the 26 cantons, started experimenting with Bitcoin payments all the way back in 2016, when the leading cryptocurrency was still relatively unknown. One of the Bitcoin conferences that I went to this year was the Plan B Forum in Lugano, Switzerland. And that entire city has Bitcoin adoption all over the place. You could pay for things with Lightning. They unveiled a beautiful, beautiful Satoshi statue in front of the lake. It was absolutely incredible. But again, I can't emphasize this enough. For such a fiscally conservative country to seriously be looking into potentially adding Bitcoin on their central bank's balance sheet is a massive deal. And one of the other themes that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks on Simply Bitcoin is the theme of elections have consequences. We told you guys at the moment that if Orange Man won, it would be good for not only the Bitcoin price, but the Bitcoin regulatory environment. And now you have politicians all over the world, politicians in France, politicians in Germany. I went to Bitcoin Amsterdam this summer as well, and there's a German politician that was making a speech like, "Look, we're not going to have a choice as European nations if the United States, makes Bitcoin a strategic reserve. We're not going to have a choice in order to remain competitive." And of course, when countries compete for your Bitcoin, number go up and you win as a Bitcoin holder. So this is the Bitcoin game theory happening in real time for the world to see. And of course, Bitcoiners are winning because of it. Now, all that being said, I have to emphasize this. This is positive for the price of Bitcoin, but this isn't necessarily positive for the revolution. The revolution is individuals taking self-custody of their Bitcoin. So, good for price, not so much for the revolution, the separation of money and state. Also, guys, I want to give everyone a shout out. This is the last Simply Bitcoin episode of 2024. This is the New Year's special until we head into a very, very exciting new year of 2025. If Bitcoin follows its historic trends, the year after the halving is generally when Bitcoin enters the parabola moment. It enters into crazy price discovery. I don't see as to why this year is going to be any different. It could be, but Bitcoin has been following this pattern since its inception, since the beginning of Bitcoin's history. So I'm incredibly excited for 2024. 2024 was an incredible year, not only for Bitcoin, also for us as a company, Simply Bitcoin. We appreciate all you guys supporting us. It means a lot. Like, we've grown so much as a team, as a media organization, to try to bring you guys some of the best content in Bitcoin. And we're extremely thankful for that. So we're going to have a little bit of an end of the year special during the culture segment today and just talk about all these crazy moments that happened in Bitcoin this year. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on the news from Switzerland? I mean, it does not surprise me, but at the same time, like, dude, this is crazy. Like, it's almost as if the strategic Bitcoin reserve news coming out of countries, it's not newsworthy anymore. We've just been like normalized to it, so it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, that's actually, I wasn't gonna touch on that, but since you brought it up, I do think it's funny now that we're seeing every country talk about, well, not every country, but so many countries talking about a strategic Bitcoin reserve that even for us covering the news, we're sitting here like, do we even cover this today? It feels like no one's going to care about this because we just keep hearing the biggest countries in the world start talking about Bitcoin. And when you talk about a strategic Bitcoin reserve, you can't really go further than the US, China, and Russia talking about it. Those are the big kahunas in the room right now, right? But it is very interesting, and it is. I like how we framed this today. Of course, kind of dunking on Obama a little bit because that clip is a classic clip there where he's, Bitcoin's like everyone having a Swiss bank account in their pocket, and now it seems like, well, that could be true, Obama, but now it seems like every Swiss citizen can potentially have Bitcoin in their pocket as well, and considering what we were saying about the Swiss banking, it's known as being one of the largest offshore banking systems in the world. It's been neutral banking. I'm reminded of, I'm sure everyone's seen the Wolf of Wall Street clip, and I'm reminded of when he's trying to get his money safe and he goes to the Swiss banker and he's talking about, so you're going to protect my money. So it is fine. I find it kind of ironic and also funny in the same sense, because Swiss banking is kind of known as one of those neutral banking centers. And we know Bitcoin as being the neutral money for the world. And so am I surprised this is happening? No, but it is kind of like a weird parallel moment in the simulation where the country that's known for being a neutral offshore banking is now kind of at the very least thinking about adding Bitcoin seriously for their national reserves. So it's very interesting, and obviously a symbiotic relationship here. And I do want to talk about just how they frame this title here. So I have it over here. I don't know if you got here. I guess I'll pull it up so you guys can see it. I'm over here on their website or wherever this proposition for the amending their constitution was added. And I really just want to talk about the framing of the title here. So Federal Popular Initiative, quote, for a financially sound, sovereign, and responsible Switzerland, and in quotes, the Bitcoin Initiative. And I mean, is that not what we talk about Bitcoin constantly here, sound, sovereign, and responsible spending, neutral money that no one can control. And so it is very interesting to see this even get proposed. We'll see if it gets pushed through. Obviously, now it is becoming very more like the popular conversation right now, considering that ever since Trump came out and talked about a strategic Bitcoin reserve, Russia's followed suit, China's followed suit, and now we're seeing apparently it's getting reproposed for Switzerland. So we'll see who actually follows through on, or rather who is the first giant country or someone with a giant banking to embrace a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And now personally, like you were saying, Nico, it is becoming very interesting in some respects to number go up, and on the other respects, I'm starting to hear some of the FUD around of is Bitcoin going to become ossified? Is Bitcoin becoming a national security threat now? And what those implications are for all of us holders of Bitcoin. So there's still things to kind of consider as this starts to get proposed. But this is the last day of 2024. I think 2024 was a huge year for Bitcoin in the collective mind share. And we'll see what happens in 2025. It seems like 2025 might be a crazy year, and some of these proposals will get pushed through, whether it's on a nation state level or in the U.S. on a state level. You're seeing these conversations happen, and man, it seems like it's happening very fast. And there is some concern there for me. I'm like, I don't know. I'm starting to feel a little icky. I didn't just come here for number go up. I am here for the revolution of replacing fiat currencies. And now the conversation seems like, wait, Bitcoin's going to save fiat currencies? Wait, what weird world are we in right now? So things are getting strange out there, but we will see if any of this stuff comes to pass. In the short term, though, the conversation I think is a good thing.
Yeah, 100%. I 100% agree with you, man. This is crazy. And again, like, this was 2024. I think 2024 is like one of the most historically significant years in Bitcoin's history, with the ETF approval, the president of the United States wishing Bitcoin happy birthday, the soon to be released Ross Ulbricht, Bitcoin entering into the mainstream political discourse. Of course, Michael Saylor's Bitcoin strategy on a corporate level, just absolutely, crushing it. And this is uncharted territory, and it's extremely exciting. This is I believe the first year that Bitcoin is going mainstream, and of course, again, any Bitcoin hodlers, especially if you guys have been here for a while. I mean, it's my 8th year. This is going to be my 9th year tomorrow. No, I mean, yeah, basically my 9th year next year, which is right around the corner. Which is, I can't even believe I'm saying that. That's a long time. And it's 9 years ago, Bitcoin was not taken seriously. It was not where it's at today. And I think that this pattern is just going to continue. this is this is the best is yet to come, and it's extremely exciting. Anyways, guys, if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. It really, really helps with the algos. We're at 82 likes right now. There's 363 of you guys watching live on YouTube. So if you guys are enjoying the show so far, smash that like button. Help us break 150 likes within the first 30 minutes of the show. Again, if you guys are enjoying us on Rumble, love the Rumble audience, smash the like button, share the video, and of course on X and on Nostr as well. We're streaming everywhere. We're getting the orange signal forward. Before we start the show, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Of course, I'm talking about the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. Enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on-chain or via the Lightning Network in Canada and the USA. To get started, you put in your email address when you go to bitcoinwell.com. Takes 2 to 5 minutes to sign up, and bada bing, bada boom, you're ready to buy Bitcoin. Now, what makes Bitcoin Well different than all the other on-ramps, it is that it's a completely non-custodial platform. What does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. Because after all, self-custody is a revolution. If you're a higher net worth individual and you're looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, check out the newly released Bitcoin Well Infinite product. It's a white glove experience tailored for people that are sick and tired of dealing with that finicky Coinbase UI or dealing with computers, and they want someone, a human being that they can call every time they want to buy or sell Bitcoin. You're going to have your personal representative that's assigned to your account, and they'll walk you through the purchasing and selling of Bitcoin. And of course, if you have any questions, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC to get started today. Guys, what are you waiting for? Support self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramps like bitcoinwell.com. And if you use promo code SIMPLYBTC, again, SIMPLYBTC, you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin wishing well, absolutely free. All right, everybody, let's jump into the show. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. All right, everybody, if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button and scan the QR code on your screen. It'll take you directly to the Stampseed website where you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. Don't write down your seed phrase. Stamp it onto titanium using the Stampseed kit. Promo code SIMPLY, 15% off. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 93,510. Block height, 877,227. Sats per dollar, 1,069. Market cap, 1.85 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 10.14%. Percentage issued, 94.3. declined from all-time high, negative 13.7%. Realized monetary inflation continuing to take fiat currencies to absolute school, 1.1%. All right, everybody, here is a clip of Jack Mallers from his podcast. I think it's called the Money Matters Podcast with Matt Odell. And he speaks on El Salvador taking a $1.4 billion loan from the IMF to buy more Bitcoin. Like, now what was really funny about this is we covered this when it dropped. I believe the story was like last week or the week before. But essentially, the long story short is, the IMF gave conditions to El Salvador they gave conditions to El Salvador, basically saying like you have to roll back some of the Bitcoin law in order for us to give you a loan. And initially Bitcoiners reacted very negatively to this. We were a little bit surprised, but what we realized is when the IMF had their press release, they phrased it as if like they even used the word contained. They're like, this issue is now contained. El Salvador made some concessions. But in reality, they didn't, because the Bitcoin legal tender law remains. That's number one. Number two, El Salvador kept buying Bitcoin. In fact, they increased their Bitcoin purchases. The day that this IMF loan was announced, I think they bought their regular DCA is like 1 Bitcoin a day, and they increased it to like 7 Bitcoin that day, clearly sending a message that they're not walking back on their Bitcoin policy. They had to make some concessions like shutting down the Chivo wallet. I don't think a lot of people were using the Chivo wallet, and I'm actually a big fan of the private sector kind of driving the wallet things forward. I don't think the government should have their hands in it. So I mean, I think El Salvador just won in this situation, and it seems like I'm not the only one to think that. Here's a clip of Jack Mallers with Matt Odell talking about just that. We'll be right back.
I think that this is a phenomenal deal for the country of El Salvador. For people that say, why are they doing business with the IMF? I'll tell you who would take a loan from the IMF if it meant that they could buy Bitcoin and build a future they want. Saylor. If the IMF was willing to loan a Saylor, I bet he'd take that. That guy takes any dollar-denominated debt and just stacks sats. So the fact that El Salvador's doing the same thing Saylor's doing. And what are the terms? Well, you let the public use the wallets of the free market and let the Jack Dorseys of the world build the consumer-facing technology that people are going to use, not the government. And you let merchants use it if it's useful. Those are the terms to get a Saylor-esque deal to stack sats and continue to build prosperity in that country. Again, lowest crime rates in the world, El Salvador. They've got some of the cleanest now country in the world, hardest money. I mean, they're trying to build the Latin American Singapore, in my opinion, tough on crime, clean, innovative, progressive, hard money. This is an easy deal in my book. These are terms that I would have put in place if I had any real say 3 years ago. And the fact that they, were at that place and they get $1.3 billion, I was shocked to see people had lip service about this one. I was shocked. This is the government's job, is to find ways to finance a better.
So, yeah, I mean, I think Jack Mallers hit the nail on the head. And, like the proof is in the pudding. Like you see, because El Salvador's reserves are public, unlike the United States gold reserves, we have to take the U.S. government's word for it that the gold really is there at Fort Knox. Is it really? We can see Bitcoin, El Salvador's Bitcoin wallet address, and every single day you see it just increase by 1 or increase by whatever. And when they made that announcement that they were striking this deal with the IMF, they increased their purchase rate. It went from like 1 a day, and then they purchased like 7, and then they purchased like 2, and then they purchased like 3. So it really does look like they're just taking that IMF money and buying Bitcoin with it, and it's just so funny. When an institution like the IMF, which again, coincidentally, all coincidence, happens to be headquartered in Washington, D.C., the imperial capital, you would think that the wording that they're using, it's like as if they're scared. Like they're trying to portray this position of strength. Like we've, we've constrained this Bitcoin problem. And then the constraint was they're just buying more Bitcoin, and again, the legal tender law remains law. The country continues to accumulate more Bitcoin and put it on its reserves. What constraint are you talking about? Right. So clearly that there is some negotiation happening in the background. And I think they've lost control. And I think the Bank of International Settlements, I think they're losing control as well. And all of this is very similar to what we saw with social media and how essentially governments just lost their control and their monopoly over information. And it happened like relatively quickly. It was a very messy process, right? Trump was deplatformed, a president was deplatformed, people were censored, people were deplatformed for certain political viewpoints. But then it reached a critical mass where the likes of Joe Rogan or like Tucker Carlson started getting more viewership than legacy media. And when that started to happen, what the legacy media had to say, which now we know that they were really mouthpieces for the administrative state, the government, it started losing its effect. In fact, we would play you guys clips from the legacy media and everyone in the chat would be like, who listens to this? Right? No one listens to this. That's the thing. Joe Rogan gets more views. And then, of course, when Elon acquired Twitter, I think that was the last nail in the coffin. I think right then and there, if you take a look at some of the statistics, X is the most downloaded and popular news app in 140 countries. People are no longer getting their news from legacy media. So the world has changed there, but it was like this bottom up process. It was very messy, right? And again, it seemed like these corporations, these media organizations had so much power and they had so much authority. And then what happened is that like overnight, they kind of just lost it. And now we just don't trust them anymore. I think that same phenomenon, to weave it back in, is going to happen with money. I think right now governments are riding on the coattails of the legitimacy of their fiat currencies that they've built over the decades, right? It's the dollar, it's the euro, right? But the farther away that you get from the strong fiat currencies, like if you're in Nigeria, if you're in Zimbabwe, if you're in Venezuela, if you are in a country that is regularly, Argentina is another good example, that you're regularly going through double-digit inflation, you have no confidence in your currency anymore. It doesn't matter if a government official goes on TV in a suit, stands behind a seal and tells you it is your patriotic duty to use the currency. You are not listening to them because it's a matter of being able to put food on the table or not being able to put food on the table. We haven't experienced that phenomenon in the developed countries yet, but I think it's coming, and I think it's coming fast. And I think when that happens, all bets are off. I think a lot of, and the sovereign individual talks about this, right? I think we have to understand what the power dynamics at play here are. Governments get a tremendous amount of power from being able to create their own currency out of thin air at no expense to themselves. What happens when they start losing that power? Do you think that look at how much they fought for censorship. Like if you guys have taken a look at any of Mike Benz's podcasts, whether it's on Joe Rogan or Tucker, like the lengths at which, even in the United States, that supposedly free speech is protected by the First Amendment, the lengths at which government took to censor the free flow of information. What do you think they're going to do with money? But it's unstoppable because the internet is unstoppable. Because it's decentralized, there's no door to knock on. There is no one person to arrest and the thing goes away. It's a decentralized system. So because they can't make it go away, they're forced to compete with it. But because Bitcoin is better money, we already know where that competition is heading. Governments can't help themselves but to do two things. They can't help themselves but to inflate the currency, and they can't help themselves but to control the currency. So censor people that are using their said currency. And they've abused those privileges, and then that created an incentive for people to create an alternative. And that's exactly what Satoshi did, right? So yeah, this is where we are. This is extremely exciting. And I think, once we get over this final boss, this final hump of, the separation of money and state, the disintermediation of money and state, I think humanity is going to experience a era of freedom and prosperity of which mankind has never seen before. But I think it is going to be a little bit bumpy getting over that last hump. Opti, what's your take on this, brother?
Yeah, well, excuse me. I generally agree with everything you're saying. I'm still, I think, a little less hopeful than you are in the idea that legacy media is dead. I still, talk to like my friends and family and stuff, and I still see that there's a strong presence coming from the corporate press. And so I'm still, I'm hopeful that that is true, but I'm still getting the trend that what we do here on this channel, what we see on Twitter as well, it's still kind of not fully, I don't know, incorporated into the daily lives of everyone else. Like there still seems to be some sense of legitimacy happening coming from the corporate press for a lot of people. But I think as we move into 2025 and beyond, we're going to see something similar happen where people are kind of waking up to the fact that everything they know maybe lies. Maybe us Bitcoiners are just kind of ahead of the curve. And for the last 4 years, it's becoming very obvious to all of us Bitcoiners what is actually going on, and things are crumbling and the institutions are losing respect and trust. And this is why we've seen so many pivots play out in real time here on the show and on Twitter, etc. But kind of weaving this back to the clip of Jack Mallers, I was saying something very similar when this news came out that, look, I know a lot of people were saying that Bukele kind of bent the knee to the IMF, but he made some concessions to basically better off the whole country versus just the Bitcoin law. And so it was kind of a Chad move. I remember when I was on the show covering this news, I said that he's got a chance to do the funniest thing, and that is him essentially taking that money and buying a bunch of Bitcoin with it. Now, the agreement I don't think is fully finalized yet. I think it's going to be in a couple of weeks in January, so we'll see what actually happens with that. But it was absolutely amazing to see everyone kind of freak out on Twitter about it. And then I think, to be clear, Nico, they bought like 11 Bitcoin the following day and then 7 Bitcoin after that, and then they kind of just up their Bitcoin buys. So it looks like they're doubling down on their Bitcoin buys. But yeah, obviously, I think moving forward, it's going to be very clear that Bukele buying all of this Bitcoin was actually a good thing. And we're going to see that these institutions are going to continue to fight it. We're going to continue to see some propaganda coming out of the propaganda corporate press. And so this is where we are right now. But I think on paper, and if you really look at the numbers and the data, it's becoming very clear that people want truth. People are looking for alternative media because they feel that there's something wrong. People are looking for a better money. I know this year in particular, inflation was one of the big concerns of so many people in America. Everyone is starting to wake up that, hey, maybe the money is broken. Maybe we need to figure some things out. Maybe we need some change right now. And so I'm starting to see that trend moving in that direction. Obviously, as a tinfoil hat person here, the reigning tinfoil hat person on the show, I'm still a little cautiously optimistic about where things are going. Hopefully more people wake up. But if we've learned anything in the past couple, 4 years, maybe we can't be too overly optimistic about that, because a lot of people still seem to be asleep. But hey, that just means we got a job here for a little while longer. Hopefully more people come to this channel when the price starts pumping in 2025, or at least when we think it's going to start pumping. And hopefully more people are waking up to their own power and opting out and starting to save in a money that can't be debased, in a money that they control. And I think this is the fork in the road. Do you want to use fiat money and get poorer, or do you want to use freedom money and get richer? I think it's starting to become very clear who the winners are and who the losers are. And so, hey, you want to get on the Bitcoin train, because I want to say that we might not be seeing 100K anymore in 2025. Maybe we'll get a 2026 pullback, but let's hope not.
Guys, if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. We hit our goal of 150 likes. I'm going to move up that goal to 200 likes within the first 45 minutes of the show. There's currently roughly 450 of you guys watching live on YouTube and 1,500 of you guys watching live in total between all platforms. So smash that like button if you guys are enjoying the show, and stay tuned because we have a lot to talk about during the news segment in regards to the Overton window, and also this kind of interesting article coming out of No BS Bitcoin that I think you guys will enjoy listening to. All right, everybody. And also, of course, I'm really excited about today's culture segment. And the reason I'm so excited about it is because, this is we're going to do like a end of the year review, Simply Bitcoin review, our best memories, our downs, our lows, our ups, our highs. So we're going to talk about all that. We're going to reminisce. It's going to be an end of the year special, last episode of Simply Bitcoin 2024. So really looking forward to today's culture. Guys, stay tuned. We will be right back.
I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, FINcen. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind.
All right, everybody, here is Optimus Fields, and he's showing you guys the Passport by Foundation devices, not your keys, not your cheese, promo code SIMPLY, and you get a discount. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin. All right, everybody, starting off with this, here is Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is slightly controversial figure in American politics, and look what he's saying. Bitcoin to 200K by end of 2025. This is, ladies and gentlemen, it is, what we call shattering the Overton window. When mainstream political figures and just mainstream popular figures are talking about Bitcoin, the likes of Tim Pool, Donald Trump, everyone, this is what we mean by Bitcoin seeping into mainstream political consciousness. Now, what is the next step? The next step is every time Bitcoin continues to survive every single day, it continues to prove to the world that money can exist without inflation. So it's an inevitability that people start to ask the question, what is money? As Bitcoin continues to become more widely adopted and more popular. And as people ask the question, what is money? And they see that Bitcoin is better money and they see that fiat money is a scam, that's when things fundamentally change. So very, very exciting stuff. In other news, this is crazy. This is absolutely nuts. And this applies to anyone living in the United States. The headline is Enforcement of U.S. Corporate Transparency Act blocked again following court reversal. It goes on to say, on December 26th, the Fifth Circuit unexpectedly vacated the stay, anticipating an expedited ruling on the merits of the preliminary injunction. FinCen is complying with the injunction while still accepting voluntary filings during the ongoing litigation. Quote, in light of recent federal court order, reporting companies are not currently required to file beneficial ownership information with FinCen and are not subject to liability if they fail to do so while the orders remains in force. However, reporting companies may continue to voluntarily submit beneficial ownership information reports. It goes on to say the Corporate Transparency Act, aimed at combating money laundering, requires U.S. entities formed before 2024 to disclose their beneficial owners. This includes providing full names, home addresses, birth dates, photo identification, taxpayer identification numbers, and other permanent business information by January 13, 2025. Prior to the injunction, around 32.6 million existing U.S. businesses were expected to file reports by 2025, according to FinCen. The agency has been warning small businesses that failing to comply could lead to penalties of up to $591 per day, meaning they would destroy a lot of businesses, as well as potential criminal charges carrying sentences of up to 2 years in prison and fines up to $10,000. However, with the injunction reinstated, the government can no longer compel businesses to submit their beneficial ownership information to FinCen, at least for the time being. Like, dude, and taking into account the tax reporting requirement as well, this is tyranny. This is tyranny. I don't know how else to say it. Like, this is insanity. This is crazy. It's all, look, you're getting lectured by people that they can't, even with all the tax revenue the US government collects year after year, which is more than the year before, they can't help themselves but to spend more than they collect. The Pentagon has failed 7 audits in a row. 60% of the Pentagon's assets, trillions of dollars, are completely unaccounted for. But you peasant, $591 fine and you go to jail. Like, the problem isn't the rules. The problem is rules for thee, but not for me. The problem is the double standard. That's the problem. That is tyranny. That is caused by the money printer. I mean, Jeff Booth says it. Look, you have to understand that fiat is a system based on coercion. It needs coercion in order to function, because if people had a choice, they would opt out of that system. So they have to coerce people into using that system. And this is why I always say the question isn't what is money? That's the initial question. The second question is, what is government? Because if you look at what government is supposed to be, what the original vision of this country was based on the founding fathers, it did not include the Federal Reserve. It did not include this massive bureaucracy. Remember, government does not produce anything. So by definition, it is parasitic. And if it grows too big, it needs to do these things because there's no other way of it raising revenue. And this is where we are. So when I say Bitcoin or slavery, if we continue down the path of fiat, which will inevitably lead to central bank digital currencies, which will inevitably lead to more taxes, which will inevitably lead to more control, because that system needs control in order to function, that is slavery, that you 100%. Or the alternative is freedom. The alternative is Bitcoin. Because if we're successful, and make no mistake, we have to end the Federal Reserve. We have to end inflation. The indirect consequence of that is government shrinks. No more endless wars, no more tyranny, no more unnecessary regulation. You know what that would do? Do you think those 32 million businesses knew that this was going to happen? So the government is now in the business of shutting down businesses? That's not the role of government, specifically in the United States. That is not the role of government. But the role of government has been Frankensteined and has grown much bigger than its original purpose. And you see that people are sick and tired of it. This is why the Doge thing with Elon and Vivek is so popular. This is why a populist got elected. But it does not address the root issue. The root issue is the fact that they have a money printer. Even if Elon is successful and the guy lands rockets, he builds dope cars, and he's an extremely competent entrepreneur. Never underestimate Elon. But he's just one election away for another administration coming in there and reversing everything he did. If we don't address the root cause of this, it will lead to more tyranny. It will lead to more taxes. It will lead to more nihilism. It will lead to more wars. That's what it will lead to. We must separate money from state, or humanity will always be enslaved. Full stop. Opti, what's your take on this?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting to kind of see what Bitcoin can offer the world and what the traditional world, financial world is, the status quo right now. And as you're saying, it's becoming very obvious, I think, to a lot of people that the federal governments all around the world are over bloated, and the bureaucracy that has been imposed on the citizenry is making things incredibly impossible to follow. It kind of reminds me of that one meme, or it's someone, I forget where it came from, but someone said essentially, there's so many laws in the world right now that if they want to make you out to be a bad person, they can definitely do that. And it's almost impossible to follow all of these laws. And it's because of that bureaucracy that you're talking about. It's becoming very clear that as the Doge stuff, the Department of Government Efficiency starts to catch a little bit of steam, and people start to see maybe there is a problem and they want to hopefully minimize government. It's becoming very clear that there is a problem out there. And hey, Nico, I'm glad that we can finally start to say, well, I don't know if we can say it here. We'll use the other term, that there is a cancer out there that must be eliminated, and it is the bloat of bureaucracy. And I'm reminded of a Thomas Sowell quote where he essentially says, to people responding to what would we do without government? And it's like, well, when you remove a cancer, you replace it with another cancer. It's like life will flow better. And I think this is a long journey, and I think this is going to play out for a long time. And I'm obviously hopeful that things will change for the better. And I think this is kind of why we show up every single day, and why Bitcoiners stack Bitcoin, and why we're so vocal, is because we notice that there is a problem, but the solutions that are offered aren't good, and they're not going to help things. In fact, they usually make them worse. And so we're seeing that people are looking for alternatives, and hopefully things work out for the better. But man, I don't know. Things are getting crazy in the bureaucratic state out there. And as they start to lose that control, obviously they're probably going to implement some even more stringent rules and really kind of like lose their power in that very fact of doing it. So I don't know, man, things are getting crazy out there, but all I know is I'm going to just keep stacking Bitcoin, and we will, keep going.
Yeah, 100%. Bitcoin fixes this, guys. And, we are, tomorrow's Bitcoin news today. And I'm telling you, there's something more at play here. Elon has correctly identified the problem. I would say Trump has somewhat identified the problem. However, as long as the money printer exists, as long as a central bank exists, even if you get a moral government, I don't even want to say that, but let's say you get a government that more accurately fits in with what your idea the role of government should be and what their fiscal policy should be, you are just one government away from all of that stuff being reversed. And the way that you fix that for in the long term is you end central banking. We must end the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is the root cause of these problems. Look, you guys have to understand something. And I love the Ron Paul quote. The Federal Reserve was originally proposed to essentially get rid of crises. So get rid of the financial crises, provide stability to the economy, control unemployment. That's what we were pitched on, right? The biggest crises, economic crises in American history have happened under the Federal Reserve. The Great Depression in the late 1920s and early 1930s, and of course the Great Recession that completely destroyed my generation, which is the 2008-2009 financial crisis. And of course, that's when Bitcoin was born, right? The Genesis block, Chancellor on the brink of the second bailout for banks. Satoshi created Bitcoin as a response to central banking. We have to remember what the long-term goal is here. And we're making tremendous amount of progress, and we are shifting the Overton window. But we have to remember the end goal. Yes, number go up is good. We get rich, wonderful, amazing. That's all fine and dandy. But we have to strive for more. And what do we want? Like what type of future do you want your children to live in, the future generations to live in? Because if we do not end central banking peacefully, democratically, coloring within the lines, your children are destined for slavery. Like fiat is one of the most malicious things that I think has ever been invented, because it essentially allows this insidious taxation without most people realizing it's even happening in the first place. Because if you talk to the people around you, they're continuing to seek a political solution when there isn't a political solution to this. The solution is opting out into better money. Like that is the solution. So just keep your eye on the ball, keep focused, because we have to remember why we are here. Like we came for the money, we stayed for the revolution, and make no mistake, Bitcoin is a peaceful revolution. And all we need is at least 5 to 10% of the population regardless of the country, to opt out of that system. And if enough of us do it, we're going to win. And there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. All right, everybody, stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're going to hit the culture, and we're going to do a Simply Bitcoin recap of 2024, all the ups, all the downs, all the experiences. We'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to redefine the future of sustainable energy. Also, gotta casually drop this in here, HIVE consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or check out their website, hivedigitaltech.com.
All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, BitBlockBoom. Guys, this is going to be one of the best Bitcoin conferences / celebrations of the year. It's going to be hosted in Dallas, Texas, April 3rd through the 6th. Guys, this is the first Bitcoin conference where me and Opti met each other in person. In fact, if you're trying to get a job in the industry, network with your favorite Bitcoiners, this is one of the best conferences to go to. They have famous dinners, famous lunch, famous events. And again, you could talk to your favorite Bitcoiners, or perhaps you want to work at a Bitcoin company. Again, if you're trying to get a job in the space, the era of sending resumes in is over. The way you get a job in Bitcoin is by going to Bitcoin conferences and speaking to the CEOs, speaking to the people that work at those companies. The entire Simply Bitcoin crew is going to be there. Nico, Opti, Rustin, Dante. It's going to be great. You guys don't want to miss this event. And you could use promo code BBB21 to get $100 off of your tickets. We hope to see you guys at BitBlockBoom 2025, April 3rd through the 6th in Dallas, Texas. Get your tickets quickly before the prices go up. Anyways, Opti, I see you have something pulled up. Our boy,
Yeah.
Nicholas Hoffman, Nicholas Hoffman of Bitcoin Magazine. It seems like he did a little bit of a recap. Opti?
Yeah. So, I'm going to use this as a jump off point. So shouts out to our boy, Nicholas Hoffman. He's the GOAT. It's a buddy, personal friend. Love him and his Twitter account. Anyways, he just goes, 2024 was a legendary year for Bitcoin. Bitcoin broke 100K. Trump embraced Bitcoin. Gary Gensler is leaving the SEC. Spot Bitcoin ETF was approved, and it is very clearly, literally the most successful ETF launch in history. And now we have tons of public companies adding BTC to their balance sheet. We've seen nation states around the world starting to take Bitcoin very seriously. And so super bullish for 2025. The Bitcoin price at the beginning of the year was I think it opened at roughly 42K. It seems like it's going to close around 93 to 94K. I think it's been a crazy, crazy grind of a year. For us personally here at Simply Bitcoin, it's been a grind of a year. We did get that one fateful day where we lost our channel for a little bit. We came back stronger than ever. You guys show up every single day. So it really feels like Bitcoin is entering the mind share. It's becoming a very serious thing. After Uncle Larry comes out and starts to embrace Bitcoin, you see everyone starts to follow suit. We've seen, obviously, once Trump announced the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, every other country starting to follow suit. And so I think by 2025, we're seeing that this Bitcoin thing might be actually catching on, guys. I'm still yet to be confident if the halving cycles are going to break yet. Remember the meme, 3 green, 1 red? Well, if things play out how we think they will, then 2025 should be a big green year. This is the gradually then suddenly moment I think we've all been talking about for a long time. And I think it's just been a crazy year. Nico, talking about everything that happened this year, it's pretty nuts to see where we started this year. Remember at the beginning of the year, all the attacks that we saw against Bitcoin, the industry, we're still seeing similar attacks kind of ending the year and going into a new administration. And so I don't think we're out of the woods yet. I think the next 5 to 10 years and even next year is going to be one of those very grinding years where I don't think the price is going to just continuously pump. I think we're going to kind of grind up and grind down, and I'm sure we're going to see new attacks on Bitcoin, but it's been a crazy year to say the least. And I'm really excited for 2025, though. I really hope more people come into the space as the price goes up and actually get into the good first principles and ethos of Bitcoin, start running nodes, and the culture actually does change. Though, me, I'm a little optimistic and hopeful in those regards. It still seems like when you talk to your normie friends and family, they don't fully wrap their heads around Bitcoin yet. They're still kind of like, yeah, that's cute. I wish I had bought Bitcoin now that's 100K. They're not fully there yet, but I think 2025 might be one of those years. And for us, man, I think you were telling me earlier, you have the numbers better. We started the year at 20K on our channel. Now we're almost at 70K this year. So it's been a grind for us here at the channel. I think it's been a grind for the Bitcoin network itself. And it seems like we are entering the mainstream consciousness moving into 2025. But I may be a little, I may be having some confirmation bias on this because we talk about it constantly. And it seems like Bitcoin's everywhere. It's on the news tickers. It's on, the front pages of newspapers. We are the darling in the room now, Nico. So let's see what happens in 2025. So what's your take on 2024? And we'll kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, man. 2024 has been a historic year in Bitcoin's history. We had the approval of the Bitcoin spot ETF. It felt like that happened yesterday in January. You had Bitcoin entering into the mainstream political discussion with a political candidate that's running for president of the United States, mentioning it as a campaign talking point and succeeding and winning the election. And I think that was a huge milestone in Bitcoin's history. And of course, you have to mention MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy's Bitcoin treasury strategy has been vindicated. It's proven to be a massive success. And you have companies like Microsoft, you have companies like Amazon, their shareholders are asking for a vote so that those companies can adopt Bitcoin because they're looking at MicroStrategy and they're seeing how well that stock is performing. And of course, on the nation state level, you have countries like Russia, you have countries like Brazil, you have Switzerland. We spoke about that today. Of course, in the United States, on the federal level, on the state level, you have talks of strategic Bitcoin reserves. This is happening everywhere. So this has been a historic year for Bitcoin, again, on the nation state level, on the institutional level, and on the worldwide adoption level. So absolutely massive, huge year for Bitcoin. But I think 2025 is going to be even bigger because if you look at Bitcoin's history, what tends to happen is the parabolic year comes 1 year after the halving, and that is 2025. So does that mean it's absolutely guaranteed? No, of course not. There are no guarantees. However, if Bitcoin follows its historical patterns, it seems like 2025 is lined up for some explosive action, and I can't wait. It's going to be extremely exciting. And one of the things I'll say too as well is like, look, we're hearing talks of strategic Bitcoin reserves, but none of them have happened yet. Right? Of course, El Salvador leading the charge, but El Salvador is a relatively small country. If the United States, and right now it's at 30% on Polymarket, makes Bitcoin a strategic reserve, oh my God. I would not be surprised if we hit $500,000 Bitcoin next year, if that happened. I'm not surprising whatsoever because it becomes an arms race for countries all around the world to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible or potentially missing out, potentially getting left behind. And I'm even talking about China. China's not going to have a choice. Even if it uses Hong Kong as a proxy, doesn't matter. So incredibly exciting. Not to mention the ETF, the best performing ETF in history. In history. You have Larry Fink 5 years ago. He was saying that, Bitcoin is an index of money laundering, that Bitcoin's incentives do their thing. And one of the biggest proponents of Bitcoin right now is Larry Fink. He is going on legacy media and he is preaching Satoshi's gospel. Like, if that is not winning, I don't know what is. And of course, MicroStrategy, 500% this year, 600%. And all they did, they adopted a Bitcoin treasury strategy. So, I am beyond excited for 2025. I think it's going to be an amazing year for Bitcoin and for Bitcoiners. And, 2024 was not only an amazing year for Bitcoin, it's also an amazing year for Simply. Simply, we evolved from a small hobby podcast to a podcast, and we established ourselves as a small media company this year. And, we're grateful for all you guys for coming along on the ride with us and making this possible because we wouldn't be here without our audience. So we really, really appreciate that from you guys. We really appreciate all the support, all the love we get in the messages, even all the negative comments that we get sometimes. We appreciate those as well. And we wouldn't be here without you. And it's an honor and a privilege to get to be able to do this, on a daily basis and talk to you guys and fill you in about what is the latest news in Bitcoin. And that is not something that we look at lightly. And hopefully in 2025, we can up our game even more and bring you even better Bitcoin content continuously. And we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. And thank you so much.
Yeah, totally, man. 2024 has been a grind of a year, and I'm seriously not looking forward to all the work we have to do in 2025. But I will take it one day at a time because we're in this for the long run, and hopefully 2025 we see some fireworks out there. It's going to be very interesting to see if some of these big some of these big corporations follow the MicroStrategy strategy. I'm really excited to see if more people start to adopt. I'm really kind of looking at 2025, and I'm wondering if we're going to see what we saw in 2017. And if that's the case, then we're in for a pretty crazy year, Nico. And man, I remember I got in 2017. It seems so long ago now. That's what, 7 years, I guess, going on 8 years now. And I think we're due for a parabolic bull run. And we all know what happened in 2021. So hopefully this time's different. It does feel like this time is different, man. So love you guys. It's been a great year. We will be back tomorrow. Obviously, it's not, we're not taking a break or anything, but it's going to be a crazy 2025. And I guess we made it, Nico. I guess we made it another year. Let's see if we can make it another year.
Absolutely. Love you guys. Have an amazing, happy new year. And, we'll see you next year. Peace out, everybody. Love you all.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.